Hey there, we got a video. This is Thanksgiving Day. It's snowing outside, so I happen to have five guitars here that we're going to look at. We're going to do a comparison. Going to be two different videos here. So I got three D-28's here. And the funny thing about these D-28's, they're completely different from each other. So the purpose of this is to show the broad spectrum of D-28s. And unfortunately, I don't have an actual pre-war D-28 here, an actual 1937 D-28. I would love to have one of those for purposes of comparison here, you know. But we got some really good guitars here. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about them, and then I'm going to play them, and then we'll go back through and talk about the actual guitars. So the first one here is an early 50s D-28, early 50s. I looked up the serial number. I don't remember. It's a 50 or 51 or something. The other one here is a 1941 authentic D-28, 1941 authentic. So it's a new guitar, but you know about 41 authentics, right? And the third one here is a mid 70s. I think it's a 72 314. Yeah, that makes it a 72. Pretty sure. Anyway, early 70s D-28. Complete modification on it and all that kind of thing. I'll tell you more about the guitar. Okay, 1950s D-28. I think all I did to this, I refretted it. I fixed a crack on the bridge plate, and I did that by putting a very, very super thin overlay of black locust over it. And, you know, that's always a judgment call as to what you're going to do with a cracked bridge plate. But on this one, I felt it wasn't cracked all the way through. It wasn't really bad. I just wanted to kind of strengthen it a little bit. That overlay, I'm not a big fan of overlays, you understand. They can really be tone killers. But I made that one about 30 thousandths of an inch thick, which is, you know, super thin. Just to add a little support, and it's just right under the pins. Nothing else, you know. So I felt pretty good about that. I did a neck reset on it. And I put some glue in the cracks that are starting here underneath the popsicle brace. They're not bad. They're not coming up into here or anything, but when you have the neck off, you can see cracks starting. So I put glue in there. I feel pretty confident about that. I left the popsicle brace alone. It's non-scalloped. It's stock. Other than that, I don't feel like this guitar needs to be scalloped, and I'm going to talk to the owner about it. But because everything is so stock on this guitar, it's got the original tuners, the original bridge, the original pick guard, the bracing on the inside is terrific. I would not really feel good about scalloping this guitar. It's got a couple of cracks in it here, but that's no big deal. You know, the finish is original. This right now is an unmolested, unmodified 50s D-28. And it's a really good sounding 50s D-28 too. I think you'll hear it on the video. It's just got a ton of punch to it. It's got pretty good bass, you know. I mean, it's good. It's not nasally to me. Of course, it's Brazilian rosewood. Brazilian is really nice on this guitar. And so again, you know, all those factors add up to an unmolested, very original stock D-28. And I know the owner has another guitar. He's got one of the bourgeois guitars, the vintage artist, whatever it is. I have a video on that. You can go search for bourgeois vintage, and that was like one of the top 5 guitars I've ever had in the shop. So he's got this spectacular bourgeois over here, and so I just don't see the need to modify this one anymore. It could sound a little bit better. You know, I could pull some more bass out of it. I could take the popsicle brace out. But it sounds so good like it is that it's a very characteristic 50s and 28 sound. So I'm going to really recommend that you just leave it alone. And I also changed the bridge pins on it. I put antique acoustic non-slotted pins, which is no big deal. The originals are in the case. They're all bent up and twisted. They're in the case. I did a nut on it too. So I'm getting a couple more modifications. But the original nut, again, is in the case. You could put it back on here if you wanted to. But I fixed the spacing was wonky on it. You know, the E and the A are really close together. The D and the Z were really far apart. The spacing was just super random. And so I made a new bone nut on it, put that on. That's not a big deal. Again, it's not an unreversible modification like scalloping would be, you know. That's no big deal. And the nuts wear out. It's a wear item. It's got a bone saddle on it because I did an neck reset on it. So, again, those are wear and tear modifications. So 50s D-28. I really like 50s too. Personally, I think my favorite era of Martin guitars is probably mid 40s, late 40s, and very early 50s. I just like that super punchy sound that you get out of them. You know, the late 40s have the tapered bracing, and I really like that. It takes a lot of edge on them. I don't like new tapered bracing, but when they get to have, you know, 70 years or 60 years, they sound really good. They don't get mushy, you know, out of the, not a lot, but some of the pre-war scallops, they're too dry for me. They're too mushy, and I don't like that dry sound. I want some sparkle and punch and crisp and attack, and the mid-range on this guitar is just absolutely ferocious. This is a guitar that would cut through the mix. And again, you know, go back and listen to the Tony Rice album, the Tony Rice guitar album with Freeborn Man on it, and that is just killer guitar tone. That's not the antique. That's a late 40s D-28. And I like that sound. Okay, this guitar, early 70s D-28. It has Indian rosewood. And this is kind of an unusual Indian rosewood for early 70s. Most of them have the pepper sprinkles on them. And this is really dark chocolate rosewood. In fact, when I was trying to figure out which one is the 50s, I had to really look at it for a minute to figure out which one was the Brazilian rosewood. It doesn't have the black streaks that the Brazilian. It's not Brazilian once I looked at it, but I did have to look at it. Of course, it's my pick guard too, so it didn't take me long to figure it out. But it is unusually dark Indian rosewood back for an early 70s. So on this guitar, I don't remember if I did the tuners or if he already had the tuners, but in any case, it's got Waverly tuners on it. I did a bone up. I think I did a complete refret. I don't remember. I don't remember, but it's got new frets on it. It's got really good new frets. I did a neck reset on it. I pulled the popsicle brace on this one. I scooted the bridge back, put a long saddle in it. I did scalping of just the X braces, not the tone bars on this guitar. And, again, I'm coming to like that more and more. To me, again, the 50s is the kind of sound I really like. Again, the late 40s, early 50s. And I find that by not scalloping the tone bars, I keep the guitar punchy. I've had really good success and feedback from doing that. And it's something, again, you can't buy from Martin. You can't buy a half-scalloped guitar. Okay. And I can always scalp the tone bars later if we decide we want more woof out of the guitar. But I think this guitar sounds tremendous. It's got antique acoustic bridge pins, and it's got one trick on the bridge plate. I replaced the bridge plate, the big Indian rosewood, and just for fun on this guitar, because my muse told me to do it, I put a Southeast Asian rosewood bridge plate on this one. Southeast Asian rosewood is a super nice rosewood. It's got a really good tap tone to it. My number one Prue guitar is a Southeast Asian rosewood. I've played a couple of other ones, and that's Amazon rosewood. No, not Amazon rosewood. I'm sorry, Cambodian rosewood. Cambodia is Southeast Asia. So I don't know. I don't know if they're exactly the same tree or not. It's just generically called Southeast Asian rosewood. I started putting it in a few guitars. I put it in my personal shop, D-35, and I just was blown away by how, God, I don't know what the sound is. They all sound good, but it just had a meaty punchiness to it that I really, really liked, that I wasn't quite getting out of the Black Locust. The Black Locust and Maple are more of a generic, unflavored sound, and the Southeast Asian seem to really give it a flavor that I like a lot. So, again, on this guitar, I was just standing there looking at a piece of Southeast Asian rosewood, and I thought, I'm going to put it in this guitar and see how it sounds in a D-20. Gosh, I think it sounds tremendous. 70s, D-28, these are dogs. People don't want to do these 70s. I think this guitar sounds terrific. So, there it is. It's done. And that's my pick guard. The owner and I gave him 5 choices, and I said, I like this one on this guitar. And it's a funny thing because I'm sure that pick guard's been passed over by other people. But when I put it on this guitar, I look at it and I go, man, that looks good on this guitar. I don't know why. It's just, again, it's the muse thing. You go with your instincts on these things a lot of times. And I thought that looked really good. The owner agreed. He said, man, I'm going with that one. I think it looks great. This guitar is really nice. I'm really impressed with this one. The necks on all 3 of these guitars are pretty similar. I find the 70s, this particular 70 has got just a little bit more meat up in here on the back of that, which I like. It's got a very nice, even taper. So the neck feels almost the same up here as it does down here. It makes it really easy to move your hand up and down here because your hand's not going like this, like it does with a more radical taper, like on the 37 D-28 Authentics. It's just that radical taper. You can get used to it here, you can get used to it here. But when you try to move up and down the neck, your hand's doing this. And not on this guitar. This is nice taper. It's got a soft V on it. It's just a terrific neck. This guitar feels really, really comfortable to me. Got my nut on it, so it's got wide, equal distance spacing on there. Antique acoustic pins. I cut a long saddle for it because it looks good. Great guitar, man. I'm done with it. Our last guitar here is a D-28 1941 Authentic. And I'm sure most of you guys know everything there is to know about the 41 Authentic. I've had one before on my channels. This is a new guitar to me. This is my personal guitar. A friend of mine sent it to me, customer, friend. They're all customers. All my customers are friends. Sent it to me to work on it. Got into some financial trouble. Decided he wanted to sell it. Said how much? Because to me, I really like the 41 Authentic, and to me this is like the epitome of a narrow neck D-28. You know, there might be better ones out there, but this is, you know, this is what it ought to be like. So I scrounged up the money, and we traded some work and did some other things. So this is the first time this guitar I think has been in a video. I had another one earlier that I liked a lot too. Let's not get sidetracked here. The other one was really beat up and everything, so that was kind of cool. This one's pristine. So anyway, I bought it for personal use. Shows up in the video here. And first time it's done this. It's completely stock, except for the bridge pins. I put antique acoustic bridge pins in it just because I like them better than the stock bridge pins. But it's got the stock saddle. He thought it needed a neck reset. When I got it in, I thought the action was pretty perfect. And so I haven't tested a thing on it. Okay, so this guitar, of course, is, you know, all these D-28's are completely different. The 50s over there has got a Brazilian rosewood back and side with a Sitka spruce top. It's got non-scallop braces that are not tapered. The that'd be in the late 40s. The X bracing on the 50s is way down here. It's like almost 1 3/4 of an inch. Sometime in the 50s they shifted that bracing down here, and it's clear down here. So it is like the complete, absolute opposite of, say, a 1937, 38, even into the 39 D-28, where you have a wide neck, the forward X up here that's closer to the sound hole, Adirondack spruce top, you know, wide spacing. That 50s is completely opposite of that. And it's funny how much that would change in just 10 years, isn't it? You know, you take 39 and you go to 49 and you get 50, so 12 years. It changed from the standard D-28 herringbone to a 50s, which completely different kind of D-28. This guitar is supposed to be back into the 41s, you know, so it's got scallop bracing, but it's got a farther back X. X is about right here, about 1.5 inches from the sound hole. It's got a popsicle brace in it, and this guitar does still have the popsicle brace. It's got narrow bridge spacing, a skinnier neck, you know, but it does have an Adirondack spruce, red spruce top on it. And it has, this guitar, of course, has Madagascar rosewood rather than Brazilian rosewood. So that's a big difference. I like Madagascar rosewood myself. Okay, the 70s, back here, the 70s has got Indian rosewood back and sides. It's got a Sitka spruce top. It's got the same X as this one does, basically, and I scalloped it, but I only half scalloped it. So that's a massive difference. Sitka spruce top. So you've got Indian rosewood, Sitka spruce top. You've got Brazilian rosewood, Sitka spruce top. You've got Madagascar rosewood, red spruce top. You know, like I said from the beginning, these are 3 completely different D-28s, and yet they're all D-28s. So the purpose of the video is not to tell you, not for anyone to say, oh yeah, that's the best one, you know. There is no best. Out of all these guitars, I would find, my goal is always to find what that guitar is good for and exploit that strength. I never have this built-in sound in my head and the guitar has to match that tone. Boy, let me tell you, that tone chasing is going to frustrate you to no end. And I always pick up a guitar and say, what's this guitar good at? What should I use this guitar for? So all three of these guitars have got different purposes and strengths, in my opinion. The 50s, like I said, it is just a powerhouse of mid-range. But if I was to criticize it, I would say it's got too much reverb. When you're doing the cross-picking little thing that I did there, keep on the sunny side, it rings a little too much for me. And the notes can get, they're not muddy because they're clear notes, but they overlap too much. I feel like the Madagascar Woodswood is a cleaner sounding, maybe thinner sounding guitar, but the notes don't ring over as much. It's a little clearer sounding. I like it a lot. I really like Madagascar Rosewood. I've used it on bridges and all kinds of things. If I was going to criticize this guitar, I would say it sounds a little thin. It doesn't have that meaty power, a dirty sound almost that the Sitka Spruce top guitars. Sitka has, to me, a dirty sound almost, and I like that dirty sound. It's gritty, it's rumbly. This one's clean, gentle, almost, gentile, it's sophisticated sound. The others are street brawlers, especially that Brazilian, that's one, that's a tattooed guy with big muscles, and, that's a street brawler guitar over there. The Indian Rosewood, the D-28, the 70s back here, is kind of splits the difference. I would think of that one, if we're going to keep with that brawler metaphor. This is the little guy that comes into the gym and kicks everybody's butt. He comes in and you think, oh man, And this one turned out to be surprisingly good guitar. Indian Rosewood, like I said, this is a dog when it comes in, And this is the one that's kind of surprising. I would not hesitate to pick this guitar anywhere or play any time. This to me would be like an ideal gig guitar, where you didn't want to take your whatever those Brazilians are up to now, $7,000, $8,000 or whatever. You didn't want to take this $5,000 authentic. God, they're more than that, aren't they? On your reverb, I've seen them on reverb 6,500. You can take this guitar, the 70s guitar here, modified. He's probably got maybe $3,000 in this now by the time I do the work. This is a guitar you could take it anywhere and be just fine. So to me, this is there's an old saying called the Q ship, and that was a ship that was looked like an old junker, and it had all of the it had all the guns, and it was something, and it was designed to be a camouflage kind of ship. You didn't expect it to have what it had, and that's the way I feel about these 70s. Like when they modify them, they've got much more than you would expect them to have, especially when you see them come in from the shop and they're dogs and they're out of tune and don't play. I love overhauling 70s. It's a real satisfactory thing to make them sound as good as this. And I just finished this guitar, don't forget that. In 6 months, 8 months, and a year, this guitar is going to really boom, and it's going to open up. Good guitar. Criticism of this one? I can't criticize it because it's such an underdog, and it produces so good for being an underdog. I have a hard time criticizing a really good 70s guitar. I guess, the 50s got the Brazilian Rosewood snap to it still, but gosh, this is great. It's hard. I can't criticize this guitar. I guess if I was going to criticize it, I wish, personally, it would have the 2 1/4 inch bridge spacing. But that's true of all these guitars. They're all 2 1/8 of an inch right now. If I had it personally, I would want that 2 1/4. I might have done that to this one. No, I just reshaped the bridge. But that's just a small thing, These are great. I love these. So, Okay, I hope you enjoyed the 3 guitar comparison. And again, it's not about which one's better. It's just like kind of which sound do you like and what would you do with each of these 3 guitars and what kind of role would you put in. So next up after this, 2 D-28's, 270's D-28's. Same thing. I just finished one for a customer. They're really super similar. So I'm going to do a video on them, and that's coming up next. And happy Thanksgiving. And my mother got me this shirt. Isn't that cool? So, bye-bye.